Hey y'all, what's poppin', what's good, and welcome to season 1, episode 1 of No Cookie Cutter Christian podcast. Y'all, I've been trying to film this episode for like a good 6 weeks now. I don't know what's going on, but here we are. Um, I hope y'all can hear me okay. So many obstacles happen, but it's okay. We're gonna jump right into it. So this episode is called Faith Without an Address. And if you have already seen, I had already posted my story about how I was homeless and I stayed in a shelter for 30 days. Thankfully, that's all it was. So I'm just going to walk through that with y'all. And then we're going to move on to other topics in other episodes. But today, I just kind of wanted to wrap up that whole experience because I spoke about it a little bit on Instagram, and people had some questions, child. So let's talk about it. Okay, so the first thing is that here's the backstory, right? Because I think a lot of it was like, okay, how did you end up in that situation? Here's the backstory. Um, 2022, March of 2022, my brother-in-law had passed away, right? That's my sister's story to tell. I'm not gonna tell it. All I'll say is that, you know, it was different in the fact that like we grew up with him. Like this wasn't somebody that just married into the family. Like we grew up with him, we know him. Um, and shout out to my other brother-in-law, Tio. Love him down. He married into the family, but he is definitely like brother for real, for real. But yeah, so my brother-in-law passed away in March, right? My sister buried him. That was a whole big thing. It was a lot on everybody. In April of 2022, our house burned down. So my mom, my dad, my sister, her two kids, and myself was living in that house. And so at that point, it was just like, all right. So with the fire that night, I was taking my homegirl out to dinner to celebrate her birthday. I bought her a gift and I just needed a bag to put it in. So I was running to the store real quick before I met her at a restaurant. Why, as soon as I go into the store, my sister calls me. Mind you, I'm like 10 minutes away from the house. My sister calls me like, the house is burning down. I'm like, okay, do you mean like a little piece of it is on fire or like what's going on? She's like, no, it's the whole thing is engulfed in flames. You gotta come home. And I turned around and I went home, and I just remember that whole day, that earlier that day, I was like feeling very uneasy in my spirit, right? And I was asking God, like, should I even go out? Like, why do I feel so uncomfortable? Like, I couldn't put my finger on it, but I was just uneasy. And I was like, should I go out? And I felt like the Holy Spirit was saying go. And thank God I did, because it was an electrical fire that I was in the attic, and the attic was pretty spacious, but it took the longest for the fire up there to be put out, and at the time I had my book and whatever the case is, I was there was a lot of paper and stuff like that too there, so I guess that's why as well. But in any event, I digress. I stood there and I watched the house burn down from across the street. um that night I took my niece and my nephew. um we stood in the neighbor's house for a little bit. I remember holding my sister, the one whose husband just passed away, holding her and hugging her and bawling. Okay. And then I was like, okay, I have 5 minutes of that. And I was like, okay, girl, get it together. I took the kids and I was like, I don't want them seeing all of this. Let me take them to like a McDonald's or whatever the case is. And the whole block is outside. Everybody's looking like, oh my gosh, who lives there? And they're looking to see who crying, who da da da, all of that. The news was out there, child. There's a lot going on. So that happened. And then after that, I lived in we spent one night at my sister's house, who lives in Queens as well. I remember my first lady, she had came, she had went to Walmart, she had bought a bunch of like toothbrush, underwear, like the whole nine, some clothes that she had. Red Cross came, they had bought stuff too. My homegirl from Brooklyn, she came with my pastor's wife. Like, people really just banded together and gave us the necessities that we needed in that moment. So thank y'all. Shout out to y'all. And then we stayed at my sister's house and for one night, and then we were able to, was it 1 or 2 nights? Maybe two. Then we were able to get a hotel because the insurance had given us the money or whatever the case is. So we got into a hotel, and we stayed in the hotel for about 4 or 5 weeks, and then they gave us a house for like a year. Now the year was cool. It was like, still a lot going on, but I remember, like, when was that? Hold on, I gotta check, because that's around the time when God told me to move to Atlanta, and I forgot to get the dates right before I sat down here, but it was the last Woman Thou Art Loosed conference, um, 2022. That was 2022, and I remember that was around what, September. It was in Atlanta for sure, but it was in 2022, and I remember God telling me, I came over here. First of all, I used to talk so much trash about Atlanta, right? So much trash about Atlanta. And I was just like, was just coming out here for the conference, really. I was just planning on being in and out. So, um, came to the conference, and what you call it, I remember my sister, Dana, asking me, how do you like Atlanta? And when she asked me that, I was like, well, it just feels like home. And I heard myself say, I blurted it out. You know what I'm saying? And when I heard myself say it, I was just like, okay, God, I already kind of see what you're doing, right? And so she said that. I said, it feels like home. And then I said, okay, God, if this is where you want me to move, like, confirm it to me. Immediately after, I got in an Uber. Actually, no, I had lunch and then I got in an Uber. And once I got in the Uber driver was like, where you from? I was like, New York. And he was just like, you should move here. And I was just like, okay, God. So I said, okay, had all intention of doing it. But at the same time, when the fire and stuff happened, it was just kind of like, I'm not trying to leave my family. So first of all, I used to talk so much trash about Atlanta because I always felt like people came here with the intention, like, oh, I'm going to change my life, I'm going to change my life, or whatever the case is. And I understand why, right? Like, part of that is because there's a principality of, what's the word, of entrepreneurship here, right? And I believe there are different principalities here, like homosexuality is one topic. We're not going to bother that today. But there is a principality of entrepreneurship here that, like, people just network together. Like, this is what happens here so easily, where I feel like other places might be a bit of a struggle, right? So I was just like, okay, wasn't even thinking about that part, but people were always just saying, like acting like going to Atlanta and changing your life was just the thing to do. Like, you go to Atlanta, you change your life, like that's how it works, kind of thing. I was not buying it. I was just like, I'm in New York, like, mind you, I was raised in Trinidad until I was 12, and so then being in New York was just like night and day from Trinidad. I felt like it was my first experience in America where all your dreams come true and you in the heart of the city. Like, and meaning, like, you are in New York. Like, that's the spot that everybody talks about. You get what I'm saying? And that's the spot where if you act, if you dance, or whatever the case is, like, New York and LA is known for those things. I felt like Atlanta, like, okay, like, what are we doing? So anyways, so I heard God tell me that, but then I was like, God, my family just, a lot is going on right now. And there's some other things that were going on that I'm not going to talk about. But I just felt like I could not leave my family. And I want to pause and say this. For me, I felt like I held a position higher than I actually did in the family dynamic, right? Meaning, like, I felt like it was really important for me to be there for my sister and her kids, which, if I'm there, I'm always going to be there for them. So that worked out. However, if you're not there, God is going to make it happen. Like, you're not God and you're not anybody's savior. And so I feel like that's kind of the role that I took on, as far as like being able to help out in different ways. Um, and just be there. Like, I just didn't feel like it was time to leave my family. And if you know me, you know that me and my sisters, gang gang, okay? Like, I do not play about my sisters. I love my sisters. They are my best friends. Thankful to God, I have about 2 or 3 more really close friends that I could talk about anything to. But like my sisters, gang gang, okay? And I have a really, really close friend. Shout out to Malaysia. But yeah, so I think that moving was just, it did not occur to me. I was like, okay, you must not be meaning now because there's no way that you could tell me to move right now. So that was that, and I, kept on working in New York, kept on doing my thing in New York, and I always had that in the back of my mind, but I was just like, okay, cool. So then the year passes after the fire. It's now May of 2023, and I think I went to a Women Evolve that year, and I came back. Well, no, it wasn't Women Evolve. It was Millions Conference with Tiffany Montgomery. Sidebar: best conference I've ever been to. Like, the one I went to 2023, it was so good. And let me tell y'all, oh my gosh, so many things are coming back. This is so juicy to me. But one of the ways that God gave me faith to even move was that He showed me something, right? Okay, so let me tell y'all the story about Millions Conference. So I'm over here trying to buy, I think I had bought my plane ticket. It was in Texas or something. I bought my plane ticket and I was trying to get my hotel room. So the hotel room that the conference was in, like, some days were sold out. So I was just like, okay, I'm gonna stay in another hotel and I'm gonna transfer to that hotel, right? So the other hotel I found was walking distance from that hotel. It was cute, looked clean, whatever. So I got that room and I was trying to get the room all night. Like, I tried for like maybe 2 or 3 hours. It was not going through. And I was just like, what is happening? Like, why can't I just book this room simply? So I just walked away from it. I was just like, okay, like, let me just put this down. I was frustrated. I went to sleep. The next day I sat down and the Holy Spirit spoke to me. He said, book a room where there's 2 beds. And I was like, 2 beds? And he just let me know, like, there's going to be somebody that needs a bed. And I'm just looking like, what? Like, first of all, God, I don't even do strangers in my space like that. Like, this. So I'm just like, okay. So I booked it. And then I did the next hotel room. I booked the 2 beds as well. And then I got to the hotel room. Mind you, I did this like a couple months, at least weeks in advance. So I totally forgot about it. And then I got into the room and I saw the 2 beds and I was just like, God did tell you that. So I just kept my eyes open from then. So anyway, so Million Conference, we went to, where did we go? We went to Covered by God. Covered by God had something that night where, the regular Covered by God monthly. So it's pretty much a service that Tiffany Montgomery holds. So I went to the service. I had, like, I guess, made friends during the day, like people that I was just sitting next to, which that too was even like weird because I didn't come with that intention, but it just so happened that, like, it was like 6 or 8 of us, like, just made friends or whatever. So cool. Made friends with everybody, and then they was going to Covered by God after, so it was like 2 cars or whatever. So they was holding my space on the line. So I get on the line and I see this girl, and she's standing there, very pretty girl, looking real, real cute. Outfit was tea, and she just wasn't saying anything. And then I remember the people from Covered by God, they came around and they were like, oh, if you don't have a ticket, get off the line. If you don't have a ticket, get off the line. So everybody's just talking amongst themselves, but there's just one girl over here that's just being quiet or whatever. So she was just like, how did she say it? Somebody had came over and was just like, oh, my friend said she's not coming. I got an extra ticket. And she was just like, oh, I'll take it. And I looked at her like, girl, you standing on this line the whole time and you got no ticket? She was just like, no. I said, how are you standing here mad bold, mad confident without a ticket? And they keep on passing by and saying, like, if you don't have a ticket, get off the line and go somewhere else because you're not getting in. And sis was just standing there so boldly. I'm just like, why would you not have a ticket? And in my mind, that just blew my mind. I was just like, this girl really sat here without a ticket and just, like, like, was whatever. I was just like, okay, girl, I love that for you. So when we turned around, off of that conversation, we started talking. So we get into service. Everybody's bawling, crying, doing what they gotta do, praising or whatever on their own, doing their thing. After the service, like, we're all kind of sitting within proximity of each other. After the service, everybody like trying to take Ubers back to the hotel or whatever the case is. So everybody's just like, oh, where you staying? Where you staying? Where you staying? Whatever the case is. Whoever is driving back to their hotel, and whoever is taking Ubers is Ubering. Actually, the girl who was driving, I think she had to go home because she lived in Texas, but she had to go back to her house that was further away. So she wasn't driving really anybody. So everybody was just taking Ubers. So we, everybody, where you going? Where you going? Where you going? And she was just like, oh, I don't know. I was like, what you mean? She was just like, I don't have a place to stay. Like, I said, you don't have a place to stay? So what was you gonna do? She's just like, I don't know. I just knew I needed to come. I said, girl, come on. I know the Lord already told me about somebody, whatever. Mind you, her spirit and everything, like, I just took to her. And I'm at the point in life where it's either I meet you and it's really cool, or I meet you and my spidey senses go off. You know what I mean? And for her, it was just really cool. So she came or whatever. We went back to the hotel where she had her stuff, because she put her stuff in the hotel where the conference was at. So we went to that hotel, got her stuff, and walked over to the hotel that I was staying at. Fast forward, we got in the room or whatever, we taking our showers, and she was just like praising God. She was just like, yo, I really can't believe this, the whole nine. And the room was nice, y'all. So she's just looking like, I went from having no place to stay to being in this fly hotel. Like, this is crazy. And I'm sitting here like, this is crazy because I don't do this, but this is also crazy because for me to even know to hear God like that, it was just like, yo, God did his big one. But anyway, so now me and her is bonding, me and her is cool, going to the conference or whatever. We went to the other hotel, and I was just like, dang, did I get the 2 beds in this hotel or whatever the case is? Like, at that moment, I couldn't remember if I remembered to do it at the other hotel. But lo and behold, I did, and we went to the other hotel. We both had the same beds. I say all of that to say this. That is one of the things that God used to increase my faith, a huge thing, right? Because I always saw her like, you flew across states. You was gonna sleep in the lobby if you had to, just to be in this conference. Like, that's crazy. And you really like had no fear, no doubt in this situation. Like, when I tell you sis was standing boldly and confidently, I was just jaw dropped. And part of me was asking her questions before I told her that she could stay with me, because I just wanted to get the mindset. Like, I just wanted to understand. And when she told me, I was just like, noted. Put that in my back pocket, in my little faith back pocket. Because she just blew my mind. I'm still cool with that girl to this day. But that really changed my faith perspective, right? So back to the story. So now I go home, and I'm just like, Lord, I cannot move to Atlanta. So now it's a year after the fire. At that conference, I felt like God told me to leave my job. So I left it. Literally, I came back. I think I maybe lasted a week or 2 days, something like that, but no more than a week. And I left my job. And so now what is this thing called? Like, the contract with the extra house, that's done. It's a year now. The insurance is like, okay, we're not paying no more. They taking long to rebuild the house. Y'all gonna have to figure something out. Cool. So everybody kind of split up. So I ended up staying with my sister, at her house with her and her husband. Child, I can't even go into detail about that because it's not only my story to tell, so I'm gonna leave that alone for now. But shout out to my sister and her husband, always looking out for the fam. But I stayed there, and when y'all, that was the toughest time of my life. So that was like May 2023 to October 2024. Toughest time of my life. And it was not for nothing. It was just like, it was just feeling like the bottom of the bottom. Like, I just felt like, God, you told me not to work, right? And I tried to get a job, try to get a job. I ended up getting another job. I lasted like 3 months in that job because Lord really told me not to work. And I was trying to fight my way out of it, but it was just like, it was not working out. So that year, when I tell you I struggled a lot, but I prayed, fasted a lot, binge watched a lot of sermons. Like, through the messiness and through me just struggling through it, I also turned to God for everything. There were times when I was definitely in the car just crying, or when everybody would leave the house crying. Like, I shed a lot of tears in that house in that season. Um, but then after that, like in October, my sister's like, okay, we want our space back. I'm like, girl, say less, okay? Because I need to bust a move. And now all the doors are like closing, and now I'm just like, what am I gonna do? So now it's just like, okay, girl, you have to make the move. This is the one thing that God told you to do that you have not done, and now you have no choice, you know? So I remember, I think something happened with the insurance, and my mom had given me $1,000. That was the only $1,000 that I had, okay? I got a plane ticket. I said, I'm doing a trip to Atlanta. I said, when I get there, I'm gonna stay in a shelter. And I was looking up shelters from before, but for some reason, like, nothing was making sense. Like, I don't know. And the shelters are weird because people know, like, when you call them, nobody answers or whatever the case is. Like, there was barely any information. So I came here, I hit up my cousin. I'm like, yo, I'm coming to Atlanta. Come pick me up from the airport. He came and picked me up. And then once he picked me up from the airport, um, I told him drop me to a hotel. Now, mind you, the only reason why a shelter was even in my mindset was because I saw this girl on TikTok. She's like, yeah, me and my daughter stayed in a shelter for a year. We ended up getting our own place, da da da, whatever the case is. Like, I was like, okay, cool. It just kind of stuck in my mind, like, girl, what else are you gonna do? So, my cousin came and got me. I told him just take me to a hotel because it was too late to check into any, what you call it, to any shelters. And I was just like, let me just go relax for a second. So I bought three suitcases, two big ones, one small one. So I took the small one, put all my clothes in it in a backpack, put all my toiletries in there, and the next day when I woke up, I went to the shelter. And I felt like they had some kind of trafficking at that particular hotel, but that's besides the point. So, um, went there, whatever the case is, and I was just like, yo, um, got to the shelter, stood in front, and they were like, this is the next day, mind you. Stood in front of the door, and they were like, oh, we not taking nobody else for the day. I said, okay. And the Holy Spirit said, just stand right there. Because where else am I supposed to go? So the Holy Spirit just said, stand in front of the camera where they could see you. So I literally stood there and was just scrolling on my phone. I wasn't trying to find nothing else because where else am I going to go? I just found this shelter. I'm not about to go around the world and find another one. Wait, did I finish that thought? Okay, so the clothes that I didn't take, I had my cousin hold it at his house, right? Sidebar, the reason why I didn't stay at my cousin's house was because he was dating a girl and they were living together and they had kids and stuff like that. And I feel like once you're trying to get your life together, you cannot depend on anybody. You have to just let God do his thing. Like, you have to, if God tells you go with this person, then go with them. But if he did not say that, then don't. And I didn't have any peace about staying over there. Mind you, they did offer me like, hey, you can stay over here, whatever the case is. I felt like where they live was not in Atlanta. It was out the way. I think in Macon or something like that, far. And I already didn't have a car. Like, it was just too much. Like, I was just like, no, me and God gotta figure this out. I don't want to go to being in anybody else's house. And I already know how that is. Like, when you're staying with people that you don't know, you're gonna be cooking, cleaning, whatever the case is. Not saying she like that because I don't know her like that, but no, I'm not staying with y'all. But anyways, I stood in front of those cameras, and it's like 5-10 minutes later, the girl came back and she was just like, okay, they said they'll take you, you can come. So child, they put my bags or whatever. They say you can take out like one outfit, and then they put your bag in like this hot box. So in a room where it's like super heated, so if you got any bed bugs or whatever the case is, it could die. And then when I walked in there, they were doing orientation. So you go, you check in with the person at the front desk, they tell you what's going on or whatever the case is. Just ask you some information like how you ended up here, whatever. And then they did the orientation. So they did the orientation and pretty much told you like, okay, you can leave at 7 a.m., but you gotta be back by 7 p.m. And if you're not back, then you get kicked out because clearly you got somewhere to be. You can stay in this house for 4 weeks. You don't have to work. We recommend that you don't work. You're not allowed to work here. And then after this 4 weeks, you can go to the sister program, which is my sister's house. Because I went to Atlanta Mission Shelter, women's shelter. And then they were like, okay, well, if you, after this 4 weeks, you can go to my sister's house, and they have like a 6-month program or whatever where they give you job training and teach you different things, help you save or whatever the case is, so you can get an apartment. Now, in that house, you're on bunk beds. Everybody has their like sharing rooms. And then you have to like cook, clean, whatever. Everybody has their own responsibilities. Now, the house that I was staying in, the shelter, it was pretty new. It's pretty clean. What you call it? You share a room with 4 people, and then they have the people who have kids on one side, and if you're single, you're on the other side. So it wasn't like crazy. You know, I've seen people get crazy and try to fight. Somebody tried to fight me, child. I was just like, we both don't got no way to live. Like, what are we doing? But I didn't entertain none of that, because when I tell you I was in and I was out, like the only time these girls would see me is in the morning. Because in the morning, I would wake up, I would take a shower, I would read my Bible, go downstairs, they have their own devotion, and my bags were already packed, because after that little devotion, I'm out of there. And then they told me like, oh, you gotta take a class, like you gotta take like 6 classes in case you need to go to my sister's house. Just take the classes just in case you really need to go to the other house or whatever. So I was just like, okay. So then took a shower, did my own devotion, went downstairs, did their devotion, which was pretty much like they said a motivational word, they said a scripture or something, they sang a song, and that was it. And then after that, they would have like their program from like 9 to 10. By 10 o'clock, I was out of there. When I say out of there, out of there. And at first, like I was coming back, like, okay, let me see like what they cooked for lunch or whatever the case is, child. Every time I saw that lunch, I was like, absolutely not. I cannot eat this. They had chicken pot pie one of the days. They had nachos my first day. They have some chicken one time, some fried chicken that was really good. Other than that, I was not eating there. I called my sister like, Rachel, I like, look at what they cook. I sent her pictures and everything. She was like, I'm gonna send you some money. Like, shout out to my sisters, because they held it down. Like, they were like, no, I'm gonna just send you, I'm gonna send you some money. I was like, bet. Okay, so she sent me some money and I was eating or whatever. But during that time, like after 10 o'clock, I would just wake up, like after that program or whatever, excuse me, they had a Starbucks around the corner. Now, mind you, this shelter was in a really nice neighborhood. It's in Midtown, Atlanta. Midtown is cutesy. Very demure, very cutesy. That shelter was probably about the only thing hood. Like, I guess that's like going into the hood part of Midtown, but like everything else in the neighborhood was like nice. They had Atlantic Station over there. Like, it's cute. So every morning after their program or whatever, like I would go to Starbucks. I would take my laptop and I would be looking for a job and interviewing. Okay, I did virtual interviews in the Starbucks and in this other coffee shop, Chattahoochee coffee shop, because I was just like, I cannot stay here. And one of the reasons why I just felt like I needed to get out of there every day is because most people there had already succumbed to everything that was going on. You know what I mean? Like, they were already, like, you could see it on their faces as far as what's the word? The hopelessness, the sadness, the depression. I was just like, I cannot stay here. I cannot be dragged down like this. And some of them, especially the ones who had kids, they were like, seemed like they were like in a better mood. But I'm just like, even if you start to talk to these people, which I did at some point, like sometimes at nighttime, when I'm coming back, like, you know, people would stop me, try to talk to me, say, hey, whatever the case is. But I was just like, I can't do y'all. And no shade, because we were all in the same situation, but I just felt like I can't get bogged down with everything that's going on. I need to focus. So I remember when I first got there, my first day, they were like, oh, are you doing a program? I was just like, no. Imagine, because I was still, like, my face was still together. I was still looking good. but I was homeless. So they looking like, oh, and I'm hearing the whispers literally as I walk by. Oh, I thought she was doing a program. Oh, I thought she was doing da da da. Like she here, no, she's staying here. Da, da. Like, yeah, well, I just realized I ain't having no errands. Lord help me. Anyway, so that whole experience like was a lot. But I was so tunnel vision in there that I was not looking to the left or the right. I was fasting while I was in there. I was praying. I was like not looking to the left or the right. I was applying to a million jobs, um, and interviewing. And every day I would just go to Starbucks and just sit down and get myself together and go get something to eat. Um, but yeah, so that was that. And then within those 30 days, I ended up getting two jobs. One as a concierge in a really cute apartment building, the other as the other doing insurance with Allstate, which I sucked at. That job didn't like me and I didn't like it, child. But shout out to the folks at Allstate who held me down in that. Like the people there, the boss that I had, he was cool. And people there were cool. It just was not for me, child. So we bless God that we have moved on and up. But in any event, that was the shelter part of the story. And that was the faith part of the story because I would have never had the faith to move on the things that God told me to move on had I not seen that girl's faith. Had I not seen the girl that I met in Texas, had I not seen her faith, I would have never moved on my faith the way that I needed to move on it. And as much as we read Bible stories and all of the things, like sometimes it just feels like such a far reach because God was literally doing me like Abraham. Get out from your family, go to a place that I will show you, and we're gonna figure it out as you go. And I was just like, well, wait, what? And I have just never seen an example of that in modern day life. So I did not know what to do with those instructions. But I'm so glad I figured it out because within 30 days, what you call it, I took my offer letters and I was just applying to apartments. And thankfully, I only applied to a couple. I only applied to like two or three before this one came through. And I remember it was the day I moved to Atlanta, October 28th, 2024. The November 28th, 2024 is when I moved in here. Was it November 28th? Whatever the day after Thanksgiving was, either the 28th or the 29th, I moved over here. And I remember I did not have Uber money to be running back and forth to go see the apartment, to tour, whatever the case is. They told me I was approved. I said, where do I sign? I signed, and I wanted to rent a room. I was looking at rooms at first. They were like, oh, you're not qualified? Say less. This apartment has 2 bedrooms. I have the tour up on Instagram, and it's nothing spectacular, but it is what God gave to me, and I'm very, very grateful. This window, I wake up almost every morning and I pull these blinds, and I'm just like, God, you are so faithful. The lighting in here, early in the morning, is a beautiful thing. And I'm gonna film a podcast early in the morning so y'all can see it. But in any event, that was how God worked out that whole situation. And when I tell you, I was amazed because I was just like, I don't know if I'm gonna have to go stay in this house for 6 months. Mind you, we couldn't work at the first house, so I was sneaking to work at first. Like my training, I had to do a training one day. I snuck and did that training. I think I was working for like a week. So I came here, like, and then 3 weeks later, I was already working. So I was working at Allstate, and I remember taking Ubers, like going to Allstate, trying to get back before curfew at 7, like just all of the things, child. Like it was a lot. But in any event, what you call it? Sorry, I'm trying to figure out where I'm at in my story. Okay, so that was really it. I think there are some lessons that I learned that I wanted to share because truth be told, I feel like I didn't have to go the route that I did. Like if I had moved when God told me to move, I would have been in a lot better situation. But because I dragged my feet, because I was worried about being there for other people, trying to be other people's savior, child, which you cannot do. And like when you don't have yourself together and you trying to help other people, everybody gonna pull down everybody. That's how that's gonna work. Like you have to be in a space where you can get yourself together before you try to reach out and help other people. and not saying like, oh, somebody need a sandwich, you can't buy them a sandwich, but I'm saying like just trying to be everything to everybody. You know what I mean? Like that ain't the move. So the first lesson is when God tells you to move, move. Because if I had moved, I had already had money saved up, I was gonna be straight. But because I was like staying at my sister's house for a year and a half, no job, like had a job for like 2-3 months, that's why I didn't like everything just fell apart at that point. The other thing is I hated ATL, but that is exactly where God called me to be. And I think it's so funny because I really like it now. Like I go out, I've made a couple friends. I have a little bit of a community over here. Um, but I find it just so interesting that I hated it, right? And that this is exactly what God has called me to. And so now I'm very slow to speak about certain things, certain types of people, certain whatever. And sidebar, this is what we actually need to talk about too. For me, when I tell you God humbled me, okay? Humbled me in the best ways because I feel like, you know, I remember waking up to drop my niece and my nephew to school or whatever. Um, and I would just be like looking at the crackheads around the neighborhood that I was staying at. And when I tell you at first, I used to be looking at crackheads like, oh, they're crackhead, like da da da, whatever the case. Like now, I was just like, I get why you would hit that pipe. I get why you might be on crack. I understand because life is hard, okay? And if you don't have Jesus, what else are you gonna do? You know what I'm saying? Now you're just tunneling through things through willpower, and willpower don't always hold up, depending on how you built. You understand? And so God gave me such compassion for people. Like I don't. If I give you money, if I see you on the street and I give you money, whatever you do with it is your business. If you hit that pipe and you meet your maker, that's between you and him. You meet him, he gonna tell you to stop and you can come back, or he gonna tell you, stay here, you wilding out, you doing too much. Now I'm gonna just say you just stay right here. That's your business. If you take food, if you take the money and buy food, that's your business. I don't look at it anymore like, oh, what if I give them money and they go back? That's none of my business. I really like had a heart and still have a heart for just understanding like how people could get in those situations and just being compassionate about that. So yeah, when I tell you that knocked the judgmental wind out of my bones, like knocked it out of my bones. And that's for anybody. Like I don't look at life the same after that. I'm always thinking like you don't know what people are going through. People show up, whatever the case is, you don't know what people are going through. The other thing about it is that I think it's really important to look up, like if God tells you to move, to look up the principalities in that neighborhood area or whatever, because God is very strategic in where he places his people. And when there's a calling on your life, God doesn't do anything by happenstance. And everybody has a calling on their life. It's just that you have to be the light. If God sends you into a boardroom, if God sends you into a church, wherever he sends you, you have to be that light. But I find it very important to look up principalities in different states or different cities that you live in, because that also helps make things clearer as well, as far as what God might be calling you to do there. It also helps you to prepare for the way that the devil can attack you. Over here, I'm so glad for some reason, I knew, like, and before I could even put it into words, I knew that this was that kind of city. Like, it was a city full of lasciviousness, like people do whatever they want to do. And it was a city, I'm gonna get into that another day because I don't wanna talk about that now. Because I got a lot to say about that and it's gonna take me off track. But anyway, so that was 2. Just don't stop speaking against things, and then like God humbling me, part of it, right? The last thing is like when I moved here, I got lazy with God. Being that like, okay, I'm a little bit more comfortable than I was before. A little bit, because I got in here, child, there was no furniture. I came in here sight unseen. First time I toured, like, was the day I moved in here. And so It was like barely had no furniture, didn't have nothing in here, was on a little blow up bed in the living room, and I was just, praying and thanking God and things like that. But the more things I got, the more comfortable I became, the less I started to reach out to God and have that hunger for God. And I hate that for me. So now, of course, throughout the year, I had to get back my stride, make sure I'm putting myself in certain situations so that I can, just be better and really see God. But when I tell you, that was one of the hardest things that I struggled with. Like, God, you gave me what I prayed for, and now me and you are not, like, I'm not seeking you as I should. That was a very hard pill to swallow. And maybe in the next episode we're going to talk about why. But yeah, it was just my point in saying that is don't forget God. When God finally gives you what you want, don't forget God. And this is a bonus because I'm just thinking about it. Like, don't idolize the thing. Like, when God gives you the house, when He gives you the marriage, when He gives you the job, don't idolize that. And idolizing it is putting it in front of God. Like, don't take that now and be like, okay, well, I gotta work, can't spend time with God. I gotta clean my house, can't spend time with God. Child, that was one of my little excuses, child. I gotta clean my house, clean my house. It's gonna be fine. Sit down with God before you do anything. And especially when it comes to a man, child. You start idolizing that man over God, you're in trouble. Trouble. Okay? Because I bet you that man will start showing his behind, and God is gonna show you why the arm of flesh fails every single time. Every single time. So that's it for me on season 1, episode 1 of No Cookie Cutter Christian Podcast. Y'all, this has been a long time coming. I'm so excited about it. I'm so excited to continue to share the revelations and things that God has given me. I feel like this is like a lot of things I say on Instagram is kind of hard because you're trying to grasp attention in 1 minute, and usually everything that I say is coming from a certain context. And I need to be able to share context with you of why I say what I say and all the things, right? So I'm really excited, and thank you for joining. And until the next episode, which you're gonna see next week, we're gonna talk about dating, child. I'm scared to talk about my business when it comes to that, but we're gonna talk about it. And thank you for watching. I'll see y'all later. Bye.